What is going on there, gunfighters? Saddle up for Gunfighter Life, the podcast where we talk about guns, gunfighting, tactics, the right way, with God Almighty at the center, Judeo-Christian values, and real-world first-hand experience. I am humbled and blessed to be your host today, Michael Melito. No bio. If you want that, you can probably find it in older episodes. What are we going to talk about today? Hidden gems in the shotgun world. Recently did one, Hidden Gems, kind of an all-encompassing, and I thought there's a lot more hidden gems out there. Let me zero in. Let me crank up the power on the tactical spotting scope, metaphorically, if you will. And let's focus on one area. Let's focus on shotguns, because there are so many hidden gems. And I'm not going to harp too much on the shotgun today. If you've listened for any length of time, you'll know that I think it is the most versatile small arm that you can have for defense, for feeding yourself, for providing and protecting for your family. Okay, enough of that. What are some hidden gems in the shotgun world? Well, a big one, and what got me thinking about this, was recently at a local sporting goods store to pick up some ammo, because my go-to hunting ammo for Alaska got my wife's kombucha spilled all over it, because she put a big jug of kombucha in the back of the truck and it got hot and exploded on some really nice hunting ammo. So, yeah. So I was at the sporting goods store getting more. And I saw a Benelli Nova and I thought, yeah, that's a great shotgun. I like Benellis. You know that one of my go-to peanut butter and chocolate hitting the fan guns is a Benelli M2. Great shotgun. Like Benellis. I had several Benellis. I'm a big fan of the Benelli. Well, a lot of Benellis are spendy, like a Super Black Eagle or a Benelli M4. They're going to run you close to a Cougarand. I don't like saying US dollars because I don't know when you're going to listen to this. A year, a week, a day later. Who knows what inflation will be then. But let's say they're around a Cougarand. Benelli Novas are maybe less than a quarter of a Cougarand. They're a very affordable option. Now, they're a pump versus a semi. Benellis are kind of known for their being a semi-auto inertial-driven system. However, that doesn't mean that the pumps aren't great. Benelli has really, really good quality. That's one of the things they're known for, right? You could get a Turkish knockoff of Benelli that basically theoretically works the same way if it actually works. But a Benelli is known for its quality. And if you want that Benelli quality, but you don't want to spend, you don't want to drop a Cougarand at the gun counter, you want to drop a quarter of a Cougarand, that Benelli Nova is legit. It is been around a long time, since I was a boy. My best friend hunted with one before I joined the Marine Corps, right? It's too legit to quit. The Benelli Nova and Supernova, they're an awesome, awesome option. They're affordable, and unlike a lot of guns that are made in Turkey now, which is nothing, I mean, I'm not saying that all Turkish shotguns are bad, but I'm saying they're not a Benelli. They're not a Benelli. And if you can get a good Benelli pump shotgun for that kind of money, why not? And I really love the Remington 870s. If you can find an older used one for a good price, a good buy. But I can't in good conscience recommend the new Remingtons post-bankruptcy. I tried. As soon as it came out with the 870, I bought one and I thought, this is great. I have a lot of experience running professionally the Remington 870. And I got it, and it didn't run. Right? Brand new. Just was not reliable. So I can't in good conscience recommend them. So you're left with kind of Mossberg, or if you want a good pump shotgun, for about the same price, you could get a Benelli Nova. It's a good option. That Benelli Nova really is, I think, overlooked a lot. Now, they make the kind of all-around shotgun, which if you're looking for an all-around shotgun, I would recommend. They also make the more tactical versions, and they come with really good sights and really good setup. So if that's more your thing, they make those as well. And it's a good, reliable system with that Benelli quality. There is another, the Winchester SXP. Now, When I say the Winchester SXP, you might think, oh, there's a good American option pump shotgun. And I would say, negative. It's not. It says Winchester on the side, but it's made in Turkey. And again, not all Turkish imports are bad. And I'd say this is one of the better ones because it does have the Winchester name behind it, even though it's not made by Winchester, right? It's made in Turkey and they stamp their name on it, which I'm kind of against, right? But there are tons of different Turkish manufacturers under different names and different importers coming in all the time with different variants. And who knows how good those are going to be, right? Are you going to trust your life to that? Or are you going to be thinking, this is like an M67 fragmentation grenade with a faulty pin? Like, it might be fine, but at some point it might come apart and explode in my hands. Is that how you're seeing just a random Turkish shotgun with whatever name on it? The Winchester SXP, I assume Winchester has a decent amount of quality control, and they've made that model for quite a while. So I'd feel a little bit better about that. That said, it is a Turkish shotgun. Just because it says Winchester on it doesn't make it an old, Winchester Model 94. Made with American Pittsburgh steel and American walnut and American testosterone and grit workmanship. It's not that. It's a Turkish-made gun they put the Winchester name on. But that doesn't make it a bad shotgun. That also would go in here for the hidden gems. They're not a bad shotgun, often overlooked compared to that. But I'll be honest, and it saddens me to say, I would take a Winchester SXP, I think, made in Turkey, over an American-made, brand new Remington 870. It just is, right? I support American-made stuff, I really do, and I try to, but if my life or other people's lives depend on it, I'm not going to take a piece of junk just because it's made in America. It's got to be serviceable. And I would probably, I think, trust an SXP made in Turkey over an American-made 870, at least a new one. At least from my experience. Maybe they'll fix that. I don't know. But that SXP is not a bad gun. Now, talking about hidden gems that aren't brand new manufacture in the shotgun world. If you can find an older, and I mean older like 1990s and before, kind of before the whole lawsuit Bushmaster fiasco, I'm not exactly sure when that whole quality control started having issues, but I think early 90s and before. If you can find an early 90s or before Remington Wingmaster especially, or a police Magnum, or a Marine Magnum, or even just an 870 Express that was made prior to them without that lock. You know what I'm talking about, like that trigger guard lock? But if you can find those, they are absolutely a gem. And if Remington's quality control doesn't improve, that might just be a really good investment as well. And an investment you don't have to baby. You can use, they're meant to be used hard, right? They're meant to be used by duck hunters and goose hunters. If there's a condition that will test the robustness of a system, it's duck hunting or goose hunting in the mud, in the swamps, in the salt water. They're kind of the AKs, or at least they're supposed to be like the AKs. Like, they're just really forgiving of neglect and robust, so you don't have to baby it. But an older 870 Wingmaster or Police Magnum, if you can find an old police trade-in 870, a lot of times those are phenomenal deals. Going back before the Winchester SXP, the Winchester, these are kind of hidden gems to me. The Winchester Model 12 and 1300s. You going back to a time when they're American made, good craftsmanship. Just beautiful steel, beautiful fit and finish. Sometimes jeweled bolts. Just awesome. And they're kind of underappreciated. You can sometimes find those used at a gun store or a gun show for not a lot of money. And those older Winchester 12 and 1300s, absolutely a robust, awesome gun. They kind of lost that big race. There was kind of a time when the Winchester 12 1300 and the 870 and the Mossberg 500s, when they were all kind of competing for the military police stuff, and the 870 and the 500 kind of won out on that. I don't know if because of price point or whatever, but there was a time when they were one of the big three, and they're phenomenal. And they didn't lose out, I don't think, because of quality. They're just a really good, robust system. And I don't know this firsthand. I haven't tested this firsthand, but I've heard multiple places that they will run these short shells. And these came around long before the Aguila and Federal short shells were a thing. But the fact that it'll just run them, that's a huge advantage if you want to run short shells, which I'm a big fan of. It's one of the reasons I've kind of said one of my go-to shotguns. It was my de facto go-to, the Benelli M2, for a long time. And I think if I had to grab one now, it'd probably be the Mossberg 590. And that's because it's the Mossberg 590S that'll run the short shells, so I can carry more ammo. That's kind of one of the downfalls of the shotgun, is the ammo is heavy. I can carry a lot more of those short shells, especially for like small game hunting. If I'm shooting a dove or a quail, the short shell is just fine. I don't need to carry a full-length, heavier shell for that. Now, I would test this for yourself, but if in fact the Winchester 1300 will run the short shells, that's awesome. They are a really hidden gem, I think, in the firearms world. Let's talk about one that is kind of known in certain places among certain people, and they're really, really kind of highly esteemed, but in the larger gun community, I think they're kind of a hidden gem, and that is the Ithaca Model 37. You know, when I was L.A.P.D, we generally ran 870s, but kind of the cooler option that they still had in the armory was the Ithaca Model 37s. And that might have just been because they were more rare, but they absolutely can stand up to some hard use and abuse. The Ithaca Model 37 is a really cool American-made pump-action shotgun. Now, if you're trying to kit it out and make it look like an AR, this is not the shotgun for you, because there's not as many aftermarket things as there are for like an 870 or a 500 or even a new 1301. But if you just want a good all-around shotgun, they're pretty cool. And if you're a left-hander, or you can shoot ambidextrous pretty well, you can shoot right shoulder, left shoulder, around barricades and stuff, then this has a distinct advantage in that it ejects from the bottom. It's kind of different than most other shotguns that eject out of the side. This is bottom feed, bottom eject. Pretty cool. Now, I will say they're fairly complex. If you've ever kind of disassembled that kind of system, there's a lot going on in there, but they don't tend to have problems to need to be taken apart. I would surmise there are probably plenty of those kicking around in, you know, the older generation's hands that have maybe never been completely disassembled, maybe just field stripped and cleaned, and they're still running. They're a good system. And again, if you're left-handed, or you want to be able to run the gun left-handed, maybe somebody in your family is left-handed, that bottom eject has some advantages there. That's a pretty cool gun, that Ithaca Model 37. Also, on that same, I kind of think of them the same way, although they're different design, but I think of them similar because they both bottom eject, and that is the Browning BPS, Browning Pump Shotgun. Absolutely a good pump shotgun design. Also ejects out of the bottom. If you want one that ejects out of the bottom, and you just find a good deal on a Browning BPS, or you like it over the Ithaca 37, they're both really good. Browning makes really good stuff. That Browning BPS is absolutely a good shotgun. Talk about if you want something that's like classic looking American, you know, blued steel and good wood, and a lot of times they'll have like engraving and stuff on them. You know, those shotguns are it. Talking about the old school American, also, if you want something pretty lightweight, there's also the Winchester Model 12, which is even earlier than the 1200, 1300, but the Winchester Model 12, and they make the featherweight. Now, this is not the shotgun to bring to a tactical class and run a bunch of rounds through. If I were doing that, if you were asking me for an optimal choice, I would probably get like a Beretta A300 or 1301 or something like that. That's a gas gun, because it's going to be lighter recoil. This super lightweight pump shotgun is not going to be light recoil. But if you just want a good lightweight all-around shotgun and you're not going to run hundreds of rounds a day through it, they're a good option. And they're made so well, even though you might find one that could literally be over 100 years old, I think if you took care of it, it could go another 100 years. They're a good, simple, robust, well-made option. And since they were made, I think since the turn of the 19th century, there were a lot of them made. Especially if you find one that's a little beat up and stuff like that. If you're not getting it for a collector but a lightweight, hard-used shotgun, then they're not probably as expensive as they should be for what you're getting, for the amount of quality and American, old kind of American craftsmanship that you're getting. I think they're a hidden gem. Anyway, I'm not one to just ramble on to make content. This is a shorter episode, but I think I've made my point and given you some good options for hidden gems in the shotgun world. Tactical tip of the day. You may be familiar with, if you're talking about the more tactical world of shotguns, the match saver. It's kind of a hard plastic or Kydex. I don't know exactly what molecular makeup those things are, but you get the idea, and it holds a shotgun shell right in front of the chamber that you can grab and throw into the chamber if you just need that one round. Used a lot in the more dynamic of the shooting sports, like 3-gun or some of the outlaw matches, things like that. Well, you can go that route. It requires some modification of the firearm and drilling into your gun and things like that. However, there's a product that I've used for quite a while now, and it's Bare Tooth Outdoors. It's basically a neoprene sleeve that wraps around just in front of the chamber. Now, I don't think it would work on a pump shotgun because that reciprocates, right? But on a semi-auto like my Benelli M2, I can strap that on there if I want it on there, and that's kind of my all-around shotgun. I use it for hunting. I'll use it for defense. I've got 2 different barrels depending on how I want it configured. But if I want that on there, I have it on there. If I want it off, I take it off. And it's much more of a temporary option. I'm not saying it's better than that match saver option, but I'm saying if you want to try that concept out and you don't want it to be permanent and you don't want to drill into your gun, that Bare Tooth Outdoors is like a neoprene sleeve that'll hold a round right in front of your chamber. Pretty cool thing. Again, I've used it for years. Like a lot of the elastic stuff, it may wear out over time. But anyway, it's a good product. I don't often recommend products on the tactical tip, but that's more of a technique, and that's a product that'll let you do it, other than the more well-known, I think, one of the Match Saver. Good products, both of them. But for that, like 1-round emergency reload in the shotgun, it's a good thing to have. Also, a lot of times, I'm a big fan of the shotgun, and people often ask, what's a super tactical way that you carry your shotgun loadout? Well, a lot of times, it's a haversack. It's literally a haversack. I have one that was kind of made for upland game and hunting. Mine is felt. It's really soft, which makes it really quiet. I use it quite a bit. Use it for foraging, use it for holding shotgun shells, but I literally throw it around like a bandolier. It's super easy, convenient to get to. It's fairly fast. It'll hold probably 2 boxes of shells, so that's not what I normally do. And it's easy and handy. If I got a pack, I can wear it with the pack. If I don't have a pack, I can wear it without it. I don't need a vest. I don't need to be wearing a war belt. I can do it with any or none of the above. If you want a good option for that, a lot of the countries in the Cold War had what were called bread bags. I see Polish, Czech, Austrian bread bags. Basically the same thing. It's just like a haversack. Kind of like the Minutemen would use back in the Revolution. Just say one shoulder strap with a fairly big compartment. Some of them may have smaller compartments, but that you just throw over, that you can carry ammo in and or other things. But not everything has to be tactical, molly. And I'm not against that stuff. I have plenty of that stuff. If that's the best solution, then I'll get it. But I'm not going to get something that's molly just because it's molly. It doesn't have to be multicam to be functional. Those kind of bread bags or haversacks are a really good way to carry shotgun shells. Now, I do have my general go-to SOP is if I need rounds right now, I reload them out of a butt cuff or a stock shell holder, as I was taught that in L.A.P.D. a long time ago, and I'm just used to that. I've used it in law enforcement quite a bit. That's just how I'm used to grabbing shells and throwing them in the gun. Talking about 3-gun and stuff like that, that's a different game. Doing dual loads, quad loads, things like that. But for a practical shotgun use, just those shell holders on the stock, the 1 or 2 in front of the chamber, that's a lot of shotgun shells if your shotgun's topped off. What kind of most situations are you going to need more than 10 or 15 double-aught Bucker slugs? More than a couple of extra if you're hunting. And again, those haversacks bread bags are just a nice handy way to carry more ammo. So consider it, think about it. That's your tactical tip of the day. Your tactical verse of the day reminds me of a verse, well, many verses, but the first one that came to mind, Leviticus 17. Anyone also of the people of Israel, or of the strangers who sojourn among them, who takes in hunting any beast or bird that may be eaten, shall pour out its blood and cover it with earth. And you see this echoed all throughout the Bible. You shall not eat the blood. Don't eat blood. Even in the New Testament, when it's talking about the basic rules to start your journey as a believer in Messiah, it says abstain from that. In Acts 15, you are to abstain from food sacrificed to idols, from blood, from the meat of strangled animals, and from sexual immorality. You will do well to avoid these things. Do what it says, right? When you hunt, when you take that animal, pour out its blood and cover it with dust. Slit its throat. As a hunter, as a professional big game hunter and guide, that's one of the first things I like to do when I get up on that animal is to slit its throat and let the blood run out. Anyway, that's your tactical verse of the day. Thanks for listening, and have a blessed day.